Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to join you this morning. This year marks my 30th anniversary of working in this city. So for those of you who are not from Washington, welcome you to my town, as it were. Although I do try to escape a lot, especially these days. I spend most of my weeks traveling. My children were younger. We used to have a contest to name a city or a town I hadn't been in, a major one. I've been in every single state of the union at least a couple times, and I continue to travel a lot around the country in my business. So it's a particular pleasure to talk to you all. My assignment this morning is to talk to you about energy. Just happens to be my favorite subject for a long time. I do other things too, but energy has been the enduring pursuit of my professional career for a long time. It's an interesting subject politically, but I'm going to talk to you not about the politics, if you don't mind. I'm happy to meet with you afterwards. I'll be around to talk about politics of energy. I've been involved in that too. But I want to talk to you about some what I would call energy realities. I mean, obtaining energy in an appropriate form, sort of in a reasonable fashion, and at a tolerable price, this has been an enduring pursuit of mankind for centuries. I mean, energy resources have been at the epicenter of geopolitical and economic and environmental issues for just as long. It's not any different today. But today, apparently, we've added another feature to the energy sector, which is job creation. Permit me just a brief aside, given events taking place in other parts of this town today with respect to job creation. Just as a fact point for you to keep in mind, the energy sector in America employs about 5% of American jobs. Put another way, roughly 95% of American employment is involved in businesses that consume, not produce, energy. You could increase employment in the energy sector. The reductio ad absurdum, for those of you who are lawyers, I'm not, is to consider this scenario. Let's disconnect everybody from the modern grid of wires and pipelines, give everybody 40 acres of renewable forest, a bow saw and a mule, and you would have 100% employment by the energy sector. It's doable. Of course, only in subsistence societies is the energy sector a significant or primary source of employment for the economy. In a modern society, supplying adequate and reliable and affordable energy is more important for economic growth and job creation than the jobs themselves in the energy sector. Because there are endless studies. I mean, I've kept them all. I'm like a hoarder of energy studies. There have been hundreds, thousands of energy studies. We're doing it again. Forecasts and proposals about what we should do about energy producing and energy consuming technologies. And it doesn't really matter whether the goal is to address a geopolitically inconvenient source of energy or an environmentally undesirable aspect to an energy source. What happens, I find, in all these studies and the debate discussions, is we often lose sight of some underlying realities. And I don't mean whether there's adequate amount of oil on the planet, and I don't mean about whether we should try or could change the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. I'm referring instead to some basic principles that are essentially immutable and that constrain, often dictate what we can do with respect to energy. Let me just highlight real quickly for you what these principles are. The first is that there are two energy economies. There's the oil and transportation part of our economy, and then there's everything else, which is largely electrically fueled. They're not connected. Only a few % of our electricity is made with oil, and essentially no transportation, from a national perspective, is achieved with electricity. Despite the fact that there's a lot of hype around electric cars, they remain, and will be for some time, an emerging niche. And there aren't going to be electric Boeing 747s or 787s anytime soon. It's not in the cards. Now, there is a convergence. There is a convergence. You all know what it is. It's the emerging technology of plug-in hybrids. And it's a real convergence. I would tell you, it's a subject for another day. It's the single most fascinating potential convergence of our two energy economies that's occurred in a century. But it will take time. It won't happen overnight. And confusing and conflating the two energy economies is at best counterproductive when it comes to doing analyses and making proposals. I'll put it simplistically. Windmills aren't going to do very much to run cars. And even if this administration achieves its goals of 1 million electric cars on the road, then windmills won't do very much for 99.5% of all cars. And gasoline doesn't do a whole lot for your iPhone or your BlackBerry. or anything else that's involved in the internet or digital economy. Which brings me to a second principle, that electrons trump barrels. Electricity is more important and drives economic growth fundamentally in modern economies. About 60% of the economic activity of the United States is directly tied to technologies that use electricity. About 40% is directly tied to technologies that burn something directly at the point of use. This is a complete reversal of the situation that occurred when the first modern energy crisis happened in October 1973 with the Saudi oil embargo. We've had a complete reversal. The role of electricity and oil have changed places in the US economy. Our economy's dependence on electricity is a major reason, by the way, why this nation was not hammered senseless when oil prices hit $150 a barrel in 2008. You all know that our current economic crisis was not caused by OPEC. It was caused by an unholy alliance between some very silly policies between Washington and Wall Street. Obviously, liquid fuels will stay important. I'm not saying we don't need liquid fuels. It's just the relative importance has changed dramatically. We still need wheels, and we still need our wings to get around. But about roughly a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, largely unnoticed, we crossed an economic Rubicon where electricity became America's primary energy commodity. Now, for those of you who follow the energy issue, you know that the last couple of years we've had, for the first time in history, since the dawn of electric age, 2-year consecutive decline in the demand growth for electricity. It's unique. When economic growth returns, no one knows how fast that will be or how soon. I may have my own opinions about that, you might guess at, but I know we'll get there. When economic growth returns, we'll get demand growth again. And when it does return, by the way, it will come primarily from the productivity gains that come from our digital and information economy. That will be the primary driving force. Which brings me to a third principle. The digital economy, our post-industrial modern information economy, increases energy demand, specifically increases electric demand, both directly and indirectly. There's been a lot of studies on this, but roughly speaking, over the last 20 or 30 years, about half of all America's economic growth has come directly from the information part of our economy. Of course, information technology, as you might guess, and you all know this intuitively, depends entirely on electricity. And increasing the use of information technology increases the consumption of electricity. Look, software and microprocessors have infused and continue to infuse every aspect of our economy. You know, everything. It's not just what we see around us, but from managing container traffic to airlines and in office buildings and highways and industrial furnaces. There's today a continual and ever-expanding constellation of exclusively electrically consuming silicon-based devices that just didn't exist, many of them, 2 decades ago. Certainly didn't exist several decades ago. And they've infused hundreds of millions of these devices in every part of the economy, from desktop and palm top to factory floor and to shipping docks.